Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the microanatomy of integumentary system. The learning objectives related to this topic would be to know or to identify the skin, especially the microanatomy of the skin and its appendages under microscope, and correlate the structure with the function. So actually we are not going to use microscope here, but I'm going to discuss about the skin microanatomy, how it appears when you will be seeing the slides under microscope, so that we can identify the normal skin. Okay, so skin, also called as cutis or integument, it is the largest organ of our body. As such, the skin is actually the organ in which we have two main regions. The one which is towards the surface, that will be called as the epidermis, and the one which is deeper called as dermis. So epidermis and dermis. Epidermis is ectodermal in origin and dermis is mesodermal in origin. So two layers, they have different origins. We can see here the upper layer is called as the epidermis, and the lower light stained area, this is dermis, and this dermis is now resting on another layer called as hypodermis or subcutaneous tissue. So in this diagram, the line, very simple diagram, we can make it clear. With this diagram, it is clear that we have an epidermis which will be darkly stained, the dermis which will be lightly stained. As we go down, it is more yellowish because of the presence of fatty tissue or adipocytes. So that will be your subcutaneous layer, or which is called as hypodermis. Beneath the dermis, as I told you, this hypodermis or subcutaneous tissue consists of adipose tissue, most of the adipose tissue, and lots of blood vessels here, and few sweat glands will be there related to, which are very close to dermis. In between the epidermis and dermis, this dark stained area is epidermis. This whole is epidermis actually, which is interlocking with the dermis. So the junction between two is a bit irregular. You can make out it is elevations, depressions. So this epidermal invagination is called as epidermal ridges. The invagination of dermis into the epidermis, this white thing, is called as dermal papillae. So we have dermal papillae and epidermal ridges, or epidermal pegs also they are called as. So epidermal ridges, dermal papillae, they are interlocking with each other. This is again a line diagram of the same thing which I told you, that we have epidermal and dermal interlocking, where the invagination of dermis is called as dermal papillae and invagination of epidermis is called as epidermal papillae or epidermal ridges or pegs. As such, the function of the skin, we all know that skin plays a very important function. It is actually the thing which is covering our body, protecting our body. So it is first line of defense. It protects our body from various infections, pathogens, and harmful ultraviolet radiations. It serves as sensory function, sensory in nature. This is we can feel through our skin, hot, cold, and anything because of the nerve endings, the free nerve endings, which are present in the skin, resulting in voluntary or reflex activities. Sweat secretion is by sweat glands, which is a component of the epidermis and dermis here, and this helps in maintaining or regulation of the temperature, and also sebaceous glands will be there, which makes the skin smooth. So thermoregulation is one of the important function, in which we have secretory function, we can say. Excretory function, through the secretion of glands of the skin, water, salts, fatty substances, and urea are excreted through the skin. Synthetic function, in presence of ultraviolet rays, you can say the skin helps in formation of vitamin D. It also manufactures melanin pigment, for which we have melanocytes in the epidermis. Skin serves as a useful means in regulating water balance of the body by perspiration, again because of sweat glands. So these are all the important functions of the skin. Coming to each layer one by one. So first is epidermis. We can see here the stains. We can see how it is darkly stained, and the below one is the light stained. So the surface which you can see on your skin is this most superficial layer, avascular layer of the skin, called as epidermis. It is ectodermal in origin. It is the first barrier of protection from the invasion of foreign substances or microorganisms. As such, this epidermis is actually the stratified squamous keratinized epithelium. Whether it is thick skin or thin skin, we have the type of epithelium of the epidermis is actually stratified squamous keratinized epithelium, where we have number of cells in multiple layers. Okay, so the basal layer, as we go from below upwards, the basal layer will be stratum basale or stratum germinativum. Then we'll be having stratum spinosum. Then we'll be having stratum granulosum, stratum lucidum, and stratum corneum. Coming to these layers one by one, the first layer, which is towards the base, so is resting on the basal membrane, single layer resting on the basal membrane, very important layer here, stratum germinativum or stratum basale, because it is the most, it is on the basal lamina, and because the cells they multiply, they divide and divide and give rise to other cells of the epidermis. So they are germ cells, they are stem cells here. Shape of the cells, if we consider, they are more or less cuboidal or low columnar cells with round nuclei. Contains less amount of cytoplasm in comparison to other cells, so the nuclei they appear to be closely arranged, closely spaced. And in between these, we have other types of cells, like we can see this type of cell where the processes are going upwards. So this is actually the melanocyte, and because of this, these cells, the melanin in their the melanin gets transferred from the melanocytes to the adjacent cells, and that's why it contains various amounts of melanin in their cytoplasm. Okay, which is transferred from melanocytes interspersed in this basal layer, stratum basale or stratum germinativum. This is a very clear view, very high power view of this epidermis, we can say. The basal layer, this one is your stratum basale or stratum germinativum, where we have the cells resting on the basal lamina. The cells are very closely packed. You can see the round nuclei, some oval and round nuclei, which are very closely packed because of less amount of cytoplasm. Okay, and this is another picture of the same thing, a line diagram you can say here. So we have the cells, they're dividing and redividing. We can see the division going on here. So they are stem cells, and these give rise to, these basal cells, they give rise to other cells. The other cells which are arising after mitosis, they are called as keratinocytes. Keratinocytes are the cells of the epidermis which are actually present in other cell layers, but the cells of the basal layer also can be called as basal keratinocytes. Okay, and these cells, the cells of the basal layer, are very much closely packed, and they're attached to each other, or you can say they are held in position by extensive cell junctions. They're connected to each other and to the keratinocytes of the other layers, adjacent layer, by desmosomes, and they're attached to the basal lamina by hemidesmosomes. You can see here, this is the layer where the cells, they are attached to each other. Their junctional complexes here are the desmosomes. With the other keratinocytes also, desmosomes are there. And here the basal lamina, they are connected with each other by hemidesmosome. Okay, we can see here, this is hemidesmosome and these are desmosome. Now, second layer, just superficial. This is your stratum basale. We can see here, this is a stratum basale. And stratum basale is up to here somewhere, right? One or two layers are dividing. Okay, as you go up, the cells, they are somewhat separated from each other, and the cells, they will be having some spinous processes. Okay, and you can see the gap is there in between the cells. Some gap we can see because during the cell preparation, during the slide preparation, the cell cytoplasm here gets shrinked, and the gap appears between the cells, adjacent cells, and these adjacents are connected with each other by some desmosomes, which gives appearance of, or we can say the cell processes, they're connected by desmosomes. Ultimately, it gives a spinous appearance to the cells. The keratinocytes in this layer are comparatively larger than those of the stratum basale. They exhibit numerous cytoplasmic processes or spines, which by which the name is stratum spinosum. And the processes of one cell will be connected to the process of the other. And we can see here the cell shrinkage is there, in which the gap appears, and this gap is actually occupied by the desmosomes. And that's why it gives appearance of prickle cell layer, prickle cell. So it is also called as prickle cell layer or stratum spinosum. Now, so after stratum spinosum, as you go up, so stratum spinosum is almost up to this area. As you go up, third layer, very important layer, we can see the granules, the darkly stained cells over here, and the shape is also like more flattened. Here the cells were more polyhedral. The cell's shape is more or less polyhedral here. Here it is more flattened as we are going towards the surface. The progressive maturation of keratinocytes is characterized by accumulation of keratin. Keratohyalin granules are formed, and this process is called as keratinization. The cells of this third layer, granulosum, stratum granulosum, accumulate dense basophilic keratohyalin granules. These granules are actually the lipid granules. They contain the lipid, which along with the desmosomal connections helps to form a waterproof barrier that functions to prevent fluid loss from the body. So darkly stained, just above these light stained cells, in between the stratum corneum and other layers down, we'll find a dark stained cell group of cells, 2 to 3 cell layer thick. This is your stratum granulosum. Granulosum because the granules are present in the cytoplasm, which contains the keratohyalin granules. These granules are actually rich in cysteine and histidine amino acids or proteins, which actually give rise to, or they are precursors of protein filaggrin, which aggregates the keratin filaments, and this filament will be then transferred to the cells above, stratum corneum. So coming to the last layer, this one, stratum corneum. Actually, it is fourth layer, but we have one more fifth layer in the thick skin. So these four layers, they are common to both the thick and thin layers, thin skin and thick skin both, but in thin skin the width of these layers will be very less. The stratum corneum particularly will be very thin in thin skin. Okay, so stratum corneum now, this is the most superficial layer, consists of anucleated squamous cells which are filled largely with keratin filaments derived from the stratum granulosum. They lack other cytoplasmic organelles, and as the multiplication of the cells occurs from the basal layer towards the surface, gradually the desquamation happens from the surface. The process of cell shedding from the surface of the stratum corneum is called as desquamation, and this balances proliferating keratinocytes that form in the stratum basale. So when the stratum basale is giving rise to new cells by mitosis, the cell shedding or desquamation is happening from the surface of stratum corneum. Okay, and also the stratum corneum cells, they say that there's a outside the plasma membrane of these cornified cells of stratum corneum, the keratinized cells is coated from outside with an extracellular layer of lipids that form the major constituent of water barrier in the epidermis. So there are these few factors which actually leads to formation of water barrier. Therefore, anything we cannot just gets absorbed in our body. So this is like a barrier. Okay. Fifth layer, which is present only in stratum, which is present only in thick skin, is actually stratum lucidum. Lucid means clear. Normally is only well seen in thick epidermis and represents a transition from the stratum granulosum to stratum corneum. So as you go from stratum granulosum towards stratum corneum, a thin layer which is more translucent, we can see here, this is lucidum, a translucent layer where the cell nuclei may not be very much clear, indistinct. So homogeneous and extremely indistinct cell boundaries, it appears like homogeneous layer, a light stained homogeneous layer in between corneum above and granulosum below, and cells are flattened over here. The nuclei, they appear in traces. This is called as lucidum. This is present in thick skin of your palms and soles. Now coming to the differences of thick skin and thin skin. In our body, we have two types of skins. The skin of the palm and sole classically is a thick skin, and in rest of the body, major part of our body is covered by thin skin. Okay, so thick skin, wherever it is, usually consists of 5 layers with prominent stratum corneum. We can see the stratum corneum is very thick here. In thin, the stratum corneum is this much only. Okay, so less prominent. Well-developed stratum granulosum. Stratum granulosum will be well developed in thick skin, less developed in thin skin. Palms of the soles and hands are the classical example of thick skin. Rest of the body, mostly it contains thin skin. But if you see the skin of your scalp and back, it is thick but hairy. So hairs actually in skin of thin skin actually does not contain hairs. Thick skin does not contain hairs or sebaceous glands. But thick skin, the skin of the back and scalp, they are very thick, and it contains hairs also. So that is an exception. It actually is the structure will be more like thin skin only, but hairs will be present. Okay, so the skin will be thick and hairs are also present. So it will be classified as thin skin only, but anatomically the skin of the back and the scalp will be thick skin, but histologically they are actually thin skin because they contain glands and they also contain hair follicles. So hair and sebaceous glands are present in thin skin, whereas hair and sebaceous glands are absent in thick skin classically or histologically. The dermis of thick skin will be thinner. The dermis of thin skin will be thicker. In thin skin, there will be thick dermis. Okay, so you can see here, this is the dermis here of thin skin. Epidermis is thin here. Here, the epidermis is thick. Fine. Coming to the just diagram we can make out here. This will be epidermis, a nucleated part of the epidermis, stratum corneum, stratum lucidum, stratum granulosum, darkly stained, then stratum spinosum, which is more multi-layered, and stratum basale, the most basal layer, giving rise to other keratinocytes. Okay, now coming to different types of cells present in epidermis. In the epidermis, we have different types of cells, the most common being the keratinocytes, responsible for keratin formation, formed of many layers that continuously shed and regenerate every 2 to 4 weeks. They're arranged in many layers. They're derived from stratum basale. And second one, so stratum basale cells are also called as basal keratinocytes. Other cells arising from stratum basale cells are, as such, in general, they are called as keratinocytes. Now, in between the basal cell layers, basal keratinocytes, we have another cell called as melanocyte, which is a branched cell having lots of processes which are going towards a stratum. Toward the processes, they are going towards a stratum spinosum layer, and these cells, they contain good amount of endoplasmic reticulum, rough endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, mitochondria, and melanosomes. These cells are responsible for formation of very important pigment melanin by the help of its enzyme tyrosinase from tyrosine amino acid by converting it into dioxyphenylalanine or DOPA we call it, and this melanin pigment will be then transferred to other keratinocytes. That's why the cells in the lower layers will be more of brownish in color. Okay, so melanocytes, they produce and distribute melanin to keratinocytes. Okay, we can see here we have the cells, the cytoplasm of few cells we can see has brown pigment. So these cells are actually the basal keratinocytes. They are melanized here. Whereas the cell which is without pigment, this is actually melanocyte. So melanocyte produces melanin and this pigment is transferred to other cells, nearby adjacent cells. Third type of cell is actually Langerhans cells, which are dendritic cells. They are antigen presenting immune cells of the skin. They are present in the layer of stratum spinosum, usually in the upper layers or upper part, and they are having multiple processes, star-shaped cells, we can say multiple processes with central round nuclei, approximately forming 3 to 8% of epidermal cells. Okay, so we can see here the cells in the spinosum. Here we can see these are the cell with processes but darkly stained. So this is your spinosum cell layer cells, but the cells which are lightly stained and the processes, they are going towards other cells, but the cell is lightly stained as such. Multiple processes. This is called as Langerhans cells. Merkel cell is actually they are functioning as touch receptor, the type of cell which is found in between the basal cell layer along with the melanocytes and their modified epidermal cells. These are sensory nerve fibers and they form terminal disc under the sensory nerve fibers. They end in these Merkel cells and they form tactile disc. They form tactile disc. Okay, so we can see here this is a complex here, Merkel cells, and here which nerve is coming and entering here, ending here, forming a tactile disc. So tactile cell or Merkel cell, it is actually for touch receptors. Okay, so we can make out here clearly the immune cell on antigen presenting cell or dendritic cells, or we call it Langerhans cells, in the layer of stratum spinosum, especially in the upper part. In the stratum basale, we have melanocytes, and in the stratum basale, we have Merkel cell, where we have the nerve is ending and forming the Merkel disc. Okay, so these are the important. Other cells, they are called as keratinocytes. As they go up, the cells, the shape is changing from low columnar or cuboidal to more or less polyhedral, and then flattened nucleated and flattened anucleated. Okay, very good image here. You can practice these kind of diagrams. Next is coming to dermis. Now, dermis is a part which is supporting the epidermis and providing the vascular supply or nutrition to the dermis, to the epidermis. Now, dermis as such consists of, you can say the function is to supply the avascular dermis with nutrients and thermoregulation. It mostly contains fibroblasts, which are responsible for production of the supporting fibers, here collagen, elastin, and ground substance that gives support and elasticity to the skin. As such, this dermis consists of two layers. The 1/3 part just beneath light stained area, which is just beneath the epidermis, is papillary layer, and beneath that, the major part, 2/3 part of the dermis, is formed by reticular layer, which will be lying in contact with hypodermis. Papillary layer contains lightly stained, loose type of connective tissue, whereas the reticular fibers will contain more of the closely packed bundle of fibers and less cellular. Papillary layer will be more cellular, but the fibers will be less densely packed. Usually this papillary layer will be seen clearly and in thick skin of the palms and soles. Now, now this papillary layer, we can see here, this is papillary layer, a bit lightly stained. Here in reticular layer, that fibers will be more densely packed. Now, the papillary dermis, it contains vascular networks that have two important functions. The first being to support the epidermis, which is avascular for vital nutrients. Secondly, to provide the framework for thermoregulation. The classically in papillary layer of dermis, we have type 1 and type 3 collagen fibers. Type 1 and 3 collagen fibers, and elastic fibers are also present, which are like forming the irregular network. And this dermis also contain another important thing over here. In the papillary layer of dermis, we have presence of this important structure here called as Meissner's corpuscles, which are mechanoreceptors and responsible for light touch, which we'll be discussing again. It's a type of special receptor which is present in this dermal papillae. Okay. Reticular layer, it is thicker but less cellular than the papillary layer. It is resting on the hypodermis. It is important in giving the skin overall strength and elasticity, as well as housing important epithelial derived structures like glands and hair follicles. So this part of dermis, that is reticular dermis, it contains more of the collagen bundles. We can see here how they're densely packed, elastic fibers and reticular fibers supporting the whole of the epidermis, and it contains lots of glands and hair follicles. Okay, so we can see the different bundles of fibers over here. And the type of fiber here is actually the type 1 collagen fibers and coarse elastic fibers. Now, the cellular components of the dermis. Dermis contains 3 types of cells. As I told earlier, the fibroblast producing the collagen fibers will be maximum over here. So fibroblast will be present in the dermis, both the papillary and the reticular layer. Another important cell is the mast cells. Actually, mast cells, they are present in the upper part, mainly in the papillary layer, responsible for very important functions of phagocytosis, and in the lower part we'll be having adipocytes. Okay, so mast cells, the function will be more in allergy, anaphylaxis, wound healing, and defense against pathogenic organisms. Fibroblast synthesis of extracellular matrix and collagen fibers plays a critical role in wound healing. Now, coming to the next important topic, skin appendages. What are the structures arising within the skin? The most important one is the hair follicles, sweat glands, sebaceous glands, and nails. In sweat glands, again, we have eccrine and apocrine glands. We'll be discussing one by one. Hair and hair follicle. Hair follicles and hairs are present over almost the entire body as we know, but they are absent in few sites, like in the palmar surfaces of hands, in the plantar surfaces of feet, lips, and the regions around the urogenital orifices. Hair and hair follicles are absent. Rest all of our body is covered by the hair. That means that skin will be the thin skin. Hair, wherever the hair and hair follicles are present, that skin is usually the thin skin. The hair follicle is responsible for production and growth of hair, and coloration of hair is attributed to the content and type of melanin that the hair contains, and this is all genetically determined. The follicle, here we can see the hair, the root of the hair, which is surrounded by the follicle, actually hair follicle, forming the sheath around the hair. It varies in histological appearance depending on whether it is a growing phase or resting phase. So changes mainly appears in the growing phase. So we'll be discussing about the growing phase actually. The hair as such consists of two parts. The part which is on the surface, the visible part which you can see on your skin also, that is called as hair shaft. The part underneath is called as root. In the root part, as we come down, it has again a dilated part. This dilated part is called as bulb. Okay, this dilated part is called as a bulb. Now, this bulb has invagination of the epidermal cells. This by the nerves and vessels are entering here. This is called as papilla, hair papilla. And this root will be surrounded by a group of cells, the layer of cells, which is called as hair follicle. So hair follicle, hair papilla, bulb, shaft, and root. These are important parts here. Hair shaft as such, if you take the hair shaft and do the staining, you will find that the hair shaft, if we cut inside, it is surrounded, it has a core which is called as a medulla. Hair is actually the modified part of stratum corneum. It has outer cortex and inner medulla, and especially in the large hairs. In thin hairs, medulla may be absent. Cortex is completely acellular and it is made up of keratin. So these are keratin fibers, actually micro and macro fibrils. Medulla consists of conified cells of the irregular shapes. So inside is medulla, which is present mainly in the thick and long hairs. In thin hairs, the medulla may be absent. Surrounded by cortex, which contains keratin. It is completely acellular. So there will be presence of keratin only in the cells. Nuclei are absent. And then inside in the medulla, we have cornified cells of irregular shapes. Now, hair follicle. This root of the hair, the embedded part, is surrounded by the dermal and epidermal sheaths, or you can say the sheath which is derived from the part of epidermis and dermis. Okay, this is called as hair follicle. The hair follicle consists of the part which is extending from the surface to the sebaceous gland. This part is called as infundibulum, up to this. From the opening of sebaceous gland up to the attachment of erector pili muscle, this part is called as isthmus. The part from the attachment of erector pili muscle up to the bulb, just origin of bulb, this is called as suprabulbar part. And then the caudal part, which is called as a bulb. This is the bulb part, which is invaginated by the epidermal blood vessels, the dermal blood vessels. This is called as dermal papilla. Okay. Now, if you see the hair follicle, as such, this follicle consists of the part which is surrounding the root, that is called as matrix. The matrix is immediately adjacent to dermal papilla, represents the germinative layer of the follicle. So the part which is just adjacent to the papilla, and it will give rise to the cells of the other cells of this follicle. This is matrix cells. The proliferation and division of these cells accounts for the growth of the hair. So just outside the papilla, the cell layers will be the matrix actually. Okay, so this is one section of the skin, longitudinal section of this thin skin. We can see the keratin and epidermis and dermis. So now you can see here the epidermis with the surrounding by the cells of, or the fibers of dermis here. This is actually your hair follicle. This part is actually on each side, which is surrounding the hair. Okay, that is your hair follicle. Around the hair shaft. So this is or root actually. So this is your dermal papilla. This is your papillae, and here we have the matrix which is giving rise to the cells. Now, if you take the section here, the cut section or the transverse section, you will find this is a part of hair surrounded by the sheath of cells. So follicle is now forming two sheaths. The inner sheath is called as inner root sheath. The outer one is called as external. So internal and external root sheath. And after that, we'll be having connective tissue sheath derived from the dermis. So we have the part of epidermal cell layers which are forming the internal root and the external root sheath. After that, we'll be having connective tissue sheath, and together they are forming the follicle within which we have this hair root coming over here up to this or arising from the root. This is like just shaft, or you can say the root. Actually, ultimately, the hair is arising from the cells in this matrix actually. Okay, so we can see this is medulla. If you take the shaft, or you can, if you, the hair as such consists of the central part called as medulla, which contains the conified cells. After that, we'll be having the cortex. Okay, so this is cortex, and then another layer is the thin layer called as cuticle, which is surrounded again by the cells of the epidermis called as internal root sheath. Then we have external root sheath, and finally we'll be having the connective tissue root sheath. Okay, derived from dermis. So this is the part, or you can say the covering ultimately of the hair. Another muscle here in the dermis. In the dermis of the skin, we have a muscle extending the band of smooth muscles. Actually, the smooth muscle, which is on one side is attached to the dermis, on other side it is attached to the connective tissue layer. At one side, just below the dermal papilla, on the other end to the connective tissue sheath of the hair follicle. This is called as your erector pili muscle. This muscle contraction leads to erection of hair shaft. Okay, so we can see here, this is actually this muscle here. See this one, smooth muscle here. This is smooth muscle. We can see the spindle shaped nuclei, highly eosinophilic substance of the cytoplasm. On one side, it is attached here to the hair follicle. This is your hair follicle. Okay, and this muscle is called as erector pili muscle, smooth muscle. Now we can see when erector pili muscle is relaxed, the hair is something like this. When it contracts, there will be goosebumps, erection of the hair shaft. So this is the action we can see when it is contracting, the hairs are becoming straightened. Erection of the hair follicles. Another important structure in the epidermis is presence of sebaceous glands, which develops as an outgrowth of the external root sheath of the hair follicle, usually producing several glands per follicle. Okay, so this is one follicle. From usually one follicle, there will be several glands on one side or another side. So this is your sebaceous gland, which is actually opening here into the hair follicle. Okay, found in the dermis of the skin, ducts opens into the hair follicle. It is a type of holocrine gland. Now, what is holocrine gland? Here now we can see the sebaceous gland consists of the basal lamina. In the basal lamina, we have these basal cells darkly stained, and their stem cells are dividing and redividing, multiplying and giving rise to these bunch of cells which are forming the sebaceous gland. And these cells later on towards one side, we can see the cells are getting disintegrated here. The nuclei are getting disintegrated and leading to the secretion. So the cells, they die and secrete the secretions towards the lumen. That is holocrine secretion of these sebaceous glands. Okay, we can see the duct over here, which is opening into the hair follicle, and these are all sebaceous glands, bunch of cell-like appearance. The process of sebum production from the time of basal cell mitosis to the secretion of the sebum takes about 8 days. This is a line diagram where you can draw again. This is the stratified epithelium, the epidermis, part of epidermis. This is your sebaceous gland, how it is producing sebum here and opening into hair follicle. Okay, and this is responsible. The sebum is actually responsible for lubrication, and it has bactericidal action. Sebum has antifungal, antibacterial action, oily in nature, it prevents dryness and resistant to moisture. The sebaceous glands actually begin to function at puberty. They are under hormonal factors. Hormones controlling the action of sebaceous glands is important. In man, it is testosterone. In females, it is ovarian and adrenal androgens combinations actually. Coming to the next gland called as sweat gland. Sweat glands are of two types in the skin. The one is called as eccrine sweat gland. One is apocrine sweat gland, depending upon the type of secretion. So eccrine is the one in which the secretion is merocrine actually, where the cells they secrete the material or secrete the secretions are coming in the form of vesicles. They are excreted into the lumen. They empty directly onto the skin surface. Mostly they are present in most of the body, especially abundant on palms and soles. The secretion type of secretion is clear watery secretion. 99% water and sodium chloride will be there with some waste products, acrine. Whereas the apocrine is the one in which the apical parts of the cell disintegrates, gets pinched off from the apical portion of the cell along with the secretion. Usually it is present in armpits, groin and nipple. The secretion type of secretion is viscous, cloudy with some odor, good nutrient source for bacteria. Secretion may contain pheromones, and this type of secretion begins at puberty and is stimulated during emotional distress. Apocrine sweat glands. Acrine sweat glands are simple. They both are actually the simple coiled tubular glands. So they have two parts actually located deep. The secretory part is located deep in the dermis, and the excretory part opens on the surface. That is your acrine sweat gland. It has secretory part, it has excretory part. The excretory part is opening onto the surface. Okay, now if you see, if you take the section of duct part and the secretory part will be lightly stained, the duct part will be darkly stained, and it will contain stratified cuboidal epithelium. Coming to this acrine sweat gland, how it appears. See, the duct is this. The duct will be darkly stained, stratified cuboidal epithelium opening onto the surface. And this secretory part will be more like acinar part, wide lumen, or it will be bigger in comparison to duct, will be lightly stained. Okay, more like acini, secretory acini. Apocrine sweat glands are the glands having larger lumen, larger tubular glands, again coiled tubular glands, and it has also the excretory and the secretory part. The important thing is that the duct part, the excretory part, is opening into the hair follicle. So they are associated with hair follicles. They are not going onto the surface directly. This is your apocrine sweat glands. The secretory part of both is located deeper, usually in the deep dermis. Okay, if you see the section here, see this, the staining here, this is darkly stained, and we can see double nuclei, so stratified cuboidal epithelium. And here we have light stained structures here. So these light stained structures are secretory part, the darkly stained structures are the excretory part or the duct part, and these secretory part will be surrounded by another type of cells, flattened nuclei you can see on the surface. This is your myoepithelial cell. So if we have duct here, the glandular or secretory part, it will be something like this. The nuclei of these will be like this, running on this, whereas your myoepithelial cell will be present over here, and the nuclei will be in this orientation, flattened. Okay, so then in that way we can make out the flattened nuclei on the near the basal lamina. That is why myoepithelial cells, which contracts and leads to secretion. Okay, so contractile myoepithelial cells surround the secretory portion, where contraction expels the secretion from the sweat glands onto the surface or onto the hair follicle, depending upon whether it is acrine or apocrine. Apocrine as such will be having wider lumen of the secretory part, and whereas the narrow lumen of the secretory part will be there in the acrine sweat glands. In apocrine, they are wider. Okay, if you compare the sweat glands will be having narrow lumen, darkly stained. Here the sebaceous glands is having holocrine type of secretion. Here we will be having apocrine or acrine type of secretion, depending upon which type of gland it is. Coming to the next component, nail. Scale-like modification of the epidermis, heavily keratinized stratum basale extends beneath the nail bed and responsible for growth. Lack of pigment makes them colorless. So this is your nail actually. The nail consists of the free edge. This is a free edge. This is the body, and the part which is inside is called as root of the nail. So root, body and free edge resting on the nail bed. And here this is the skin, and skin is supporting this root. From here we have cuticle, some extension from the proximal nail, from nail folds, which is holding the nail here. Okay, that will be called as cuticle. Coming to the next, in spite of lots of things we have read here, different kinds of cells, epithelial layers, then we have different types of glands. Coming to the next important thing over here is presence of nerve endings, so free nerve endings and encapsulated nerve endings. Free nerve endings are the most numerous neuronal receptors in the epidermis, whereas encapsulated nerve endings consist of the Pacinian corpuscles, which detect the pressure changes and vibrations applied on the skin surface. Mesenous corpuscles responsible for sensitivity for light touch. Already I discussed that thing. And Roughness corpuscles sensitive to skin stretch and torque. So any stretch is actually the Roughness corpuscles responsible. Okay. Next is now coming to Pacinian corpuscles. Pacinian and Mesenous corpuscles, where they are present, you should know. So Pacinian corpuscles, as we can make out here, this is dermis. This part is called as the dermis. In the lower part of the dermis, large ovoid structures found in deeper dermis and hypodermis, especially in the fingertips, in connective tissue in general, and in association with joints, periosteum, and internal organs, because it is related with the pressure. So we can see here the large ovoid and the round mass, onion peel-like appearance, okay, in the deeper dermis. This is called as Pacinian corpuscle. Okay. The bigger picture of this here, the cells are getting, the nuclei are getting degenerated in the central part, the peripheral part are concentrically arranged, and nuclei are flattened. Another is cylindrical structure, tapered cylindrical structure that measure about 150 micron along the long axis. So this is like ovoid mass in the dermal papillae, okay, just beneath the epidermal basal lamina. This is your Mesenous corpuscle. Okay, you can see clearly here the Mesenous corpuscle. This is very nicely seen. The nuclei are peripherally, flattened on each side, right? Next is sometimes in skin actually usually contains highly coiled arteriovenous shunts with the absence of capillaries, but the shunts can be present in between the arteries and veins, surrounded by collagenous connective tissue. This is to regulate the blood flow and conserve body heat. Classically, this arteriovenous shunts, they are present in fingertips, external layer, or the parts which are more exposed to excessive cold temperatures. So this actually what happens here, these arteriovenous shunts here you can see, they're surrounded by a group of cells concentrically arranged along with the connective tissue. So group of cells surrounding this connective tissue, along with the connective tissue surrounding these arteries and veins, this is called as glomus. Okay, glomus. Now, this is just to differentiate now, or you can say the revision of what we have read, the thick skin and thin skin. Thick skin will be the part which consists of, this is the thick epidermis, in which we have thick keratin. Stratum corneum is very thick. We can see this stratum lucidum layer. Then we have stratum, well-defined stratum germinativum, and then other layers, spinosum and basal. Okay, so here the lucidum is clearly seen and very thick stratum corneum. This is your epidermis. This is your dermis part in which we cannot see any hair follicles. Usually thick skin does not contain hair follicles or sebaceous glands. Okay, thin skin, clearly we can see very thin keratin, very thin epidermis. The dermis contains the hair follicles and associated glands. These are the sweat glands. Here will be sebaceous glands. Again, this is sebaceous gland, okay, sebaceous gland, hair follicle, longitudinal section, transverse section, okay. And we can see the arrector pili muscle clearly here. This is the arrector pili muscle, this one. So this is thin skin section. In thick skin, we can see different kinds of cell layers. These are the openings of excretory ducts of sweat glands. This one. Ultimately, they're opening onto the surface. So this is all about the skin. So we should be able to make out now under the microscope what are the differences of the thick skin and thin skin and different derivatives of the thin skin. Thank you so much.